And so she fights back in a very feisty way. And she says, you cannot remove our voices. They are God-given. And it is our responsibility to sing the praise to God. And if you remove our singing, you are in league with the devil.
If a person eats nutmeg, it will open up their heart, make their judgment free from obstruction, and give them a good disposition. Take some nutmeg and an equal weight of cinnamon and a bit of cloves and pulverize them. Then make small cakes with this, and flour and water. Eat them often, and they will calm bitterness of heart and mind. Your hearing and senses will open. Your mind will be joyous, your senses purified, and harmful humours will diminish. Hildegard of Bingen, Physica 1157.
That's a recipe for what's become known as cookies of joy. Found in a 12th century medical treatise by the German nun Hildegard of Bingen. In that same treatise called Physica, Hildegard proposed to treat a weak heart with a daily teaspoon of boiled parsley, of course, honey and wine. Hildegard's two books about the natural world are Physica and the Causae et Curae, Causes and Cures, written in the 12th century, several hundred years before the official scientific revolution. In them, she catalogued hundreds and hundreds of plants, stones, animals, and metals, outlining their therapeutic uses to treat a huge list of ailments. Don't be fooled by the cute cookie reference either, as researcher Al was. I won't tell you the emoji he put in my script about those magic cookies. Hildegard's encyclopedias were some of the earliest works of natural history and biology. She explored the origin of disease, human psychology, sexuality, and this wasn't woo-woo stuff. Not all of it anyway. It was grounded early medical insight. Some might say speculation. And while her cookie recipe might not have taken off, though, I don't know, researcher Al might be giving it a go, she did make an amazing contribution to the world of food and drink. In Physica, she gives us the first written account of the use of hops as a preservative in beer. And I know researcher Al will be exploring that. Specifically, she writes that adding hops prevents the putrefaction of beverages so that they last longer. True story. However, she also warns that the hoppier the beer, the more it increases melancholy. So I'm not convinced she would buy into the craft beer craze that's taken hold in some parts of the world. By the way, if a nun writing about how to brew beer seems a bit weird, we've got a whole episode on the history of the church and alcohol. Episode 144, it's titled Into Wine. Link in the show notes. All of this may sound weird, but it's certainly not the weirdest thing about Hildegard, nor was Physica anywhere close to her only work. As one of her biographers, Fiona Maddox, has written, in order to fully get to grips with Hildegard's output, you'd have to become a specialist in 12th century Germany, medieval Latin, ecclesiastical history, the history of science and medicine, botany, mineralogy, and petrology, study of rocks, as well as zoology and theology, mysticism, music, painting, and monastic architecture. This woman was amazing. She led an abbey. She advised royalty, chastised priests and popes. The Western Church eventually made her a saint. More than that, they made her a doctor of the church, which is a really big deal because only about 38 people have been recognized for their profound Christian teaching. That's what doctor used to mean. It was an expert teacher. And she took her place on that list in 2012, 833 years after her death, now listed as a doctor alongside Augustine of Hippo, Gregory the Great, the Venerable Bede, and others. Those guys have all had episodes of their own on Undeceptions. Now it's Hildegard's turn, and it's about time. I'm John Dickson, and this is Undeceptions. Every episode of Undeceptions, we explore some aspect of life, faith, history, science, culture, or ethics that's either much misunderstood or mostly forgotten. And with the help of people who know what they're talking about, we're trying to undeceive ourselves and let the truth out. Hey guys, absolutely beautiful day here in Bingen in Germany, just an hour outside of Frankfurt. And I've come to explore the church and the abbey of Hildegard. I'm pretty excited. I've admired this woman for so many years. To be here is pretty special. Just last month, on my way home from speaking at a conference in Poland, I took a day to drive from Frankfurt Airport to the town of Bingen on the Rhine. This is the historic home of Hildegard of Bingen. I've been wanting to make that trip for a very long time, and I had to fight producer Kaley for the honour. I visited her final resting place, the Church of St. Hildegard, of course, where you can find her bones. And then I headed up the hill to the beautiful modern Abbey of St. Hildegard, a working Benedictine monastery where I met Sister Lydia, who took me on a lovely tour of the grounds and a little wine tasting. Listen to the end for that. You'll meet Lydia in a moment. First, who was Hildegard of Bingen?
Well, she was born in 1098 and died in 1179. So she had a long life. And she was a daughter of local minor nobility. And started, she says, in the autobiographical portions of her vita, or life story, that she had visions at a very young age. And she was a sickly child, and was sent with the local count of Sponheim, with his daughter Jutta, to be instructed by a pious widow. And so she had learning right from the start, rudimentary knowledge of Latin, of music, of the liberal arts curriculum that a child would get.
That's Margot Fassler. She's the Emeritus Professor of Music, History and Liturgy at the University of Notre Dame, or I meant to say Notre Dame, and a world-renowned expert on Hildegard von Bingen. As a child, about 8 years of age, Hildegard was given to the church as an oblate. That's a type of offering to God. That's what oblate means in Latin. It was a fairly well-established practice. The Venerable Bede, the medieval monk who's the father of English history, was also an oblate. He entered a monastery at 7 years of age. The young Hildegard became friends with another girl named Jutta, who ended up having a massive influence on Hildegard.
And when she was a little bit older, Jutta, the count's daughter, was her playmate and then became her mentor. And Jutta wanted to go on pilgrimage to Jerusalem.
Mm.
And her brother persuaded her instead to set up a kind of monastic enclosure for herself and some other young women, and Hildegard was one of them. So Jutta was a mystic,
Mm-hmm.
and she set up a women's cell in a newly founded Benedictine monastery at the Disibodenberg, which is about, 20 kilometers from Bingen. And it was wildly successful.
You might have noticed that Margot just mentioned Jutta set up a women's cell. That's not a prison cell. Jutta didn't just enter into a monastery. She became what's called an anchoress, enclosed in a small room, a cell. An anchorite, or an anchoress, if you're a female, generally doesn't leave that room, that cell, after she takes her vows. They were allowed visitors, and they often had loads of visitors who were looking for spiritual and moral advice. But physically, this was a very small and restricted existence. The taking of the veil ceremony to become an anchoress followed a pretty similar format to a funeral. You were now dead to the world.
She was incredibly pious and gained a real reputation for her piety and for her knowledge. And so people would come from all around to speak through the grill to her, to get advice, etc. And so the monastery was added to by more and more women. And she was very strict in her ways of life. She fasted herself almost to death. And she died at a young age. And when she died, Hildegard was elected in her stead to be the head of that community.
Hildegard had spent decades at Disibodenberg with Jutta, and then everything changed.
And behold, in the 43rd year of my earthly course, as I was gazing with great fear and trembling, attention at a heavenly vision, I saw a great splendour in which resounded a voice from heaven saying to me, "O fragile human, ashes of ashes and filth of filth, say and write what you see and hear."
Hildegard started to have her visions from about 3 years of age, but she was too afraid to speak about them, fearing skepticism, ridicule, and maybe even church condemnation. But after Jutta's death and taking over the leadership of the growing women's community attached to the monastery at Disibodenberg, Hildegard begins to write her visions down, and then she begins to speak, and people begin to listen.
In around 1150, Hildegard became desirous of leaving that female community that was attached to a male community. She wanted to strike out on her own. And so she did so. And she formed a community at Bingen, up on the hill, high hill, and received endowments and took some endowments with her. And it was a huge time of struggle, the late 1140s and around 1150, because the monks did not want to let her go. She had already become something of a famous person, and she had already started doing some writing. So it was a struggle. And some of the nuns didn't want to go. They didn't want to leave a nice, comfortable place, strike out, build something new, but off they went. And so she founded this monastery with endowments, and she got more and more endowments as time went on. And she built she designed herself. One of the many things that she did was to do architecture, design a place for a women's community. She had running water. She had a room for embroidery. She had a room for copying manuscripts. And of course, it became wildly successful. And many people came.
After the break, Hildegard von Bingen goes to Bingen. And so do I. This episode of Undeceptions is brought to you by the New Living Translation from Tyndale House. Tyndale first published its New Living Translation of the Bible, the NLT for short, back in 1996. They employed a team of over 100 Bible scholars who worked with the earliest Hebrew, Aramaic and Greek texts to bring the NLT to life. The result is a razor-accurate, super readable English translation that this year celebrates its 30th anniversary. And honestly, I recommend this translation if you're not even sure about the Christian faith. I think you'll find it really meaningful. With the NLT, Tyndale House is continuing the legacy of its namesake, William Tyndale. In the 16th century, he produced the first direct English translation of the Bible from the original Greek and Hebrew. And honestly, this is a translation I recommend, especially if you're not sure what to make of the Christian faith. It's one that is accurate, but it really opens what it means for us today. Try it for yourself. Visit tyndale.com and use the code POD30, all caps, at checkout for 30% off any NLT Bible. That's tyndale.com, code POD number 30. The Democratic Republic of Congo is currently in the midst of an escalating Ebola outbreak. With a death rate between 30 and 50%, it's a dangerous moment for a population already suffering from ongoing civil war. Anglican Aid is on the ground near the epicenter of the outbreak, working with churches and a network of health clinics to prevent the spread of this disease. They need your help to continue, so please consider donating to its emergency relief fund. Head to anglicanaid.org.au/undeceptions. That's anglicanaid.org.au/undeceptions. Every donation makes a difference.
Sister Lydia?
Yeah.
Hello.
So,
John
nice to meet you.
Dickson.
Yeah.
Lovely to meet you.
Yes, same
and
to you.
thank you so much for giving
Yeah.
me some of your time.
And for you, we call the sun.
It's Sydney weather, yes?
Sydney. Okay.
Yes.
You're
Sydney
from
Sydney is like this all the time.
All the time.
That's Sister Lydia Strittle of the Abbey of St Hildegard, who's generously taking me on a tour of the modern-day abbey and its grounds and winery. The day I visited was a spectacularly clear, sunny day.
So now you have a look here in the Rheingau.
Yes.
One of the nicest area in Germany, I say.
Wonderful.
Yeah, even now when the grapes are becoming green more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you cultivate these? I mean, do the sisters
we have
cultivate
8 hectares. This is belonging to our monastery.
Yes, yes. But do you yourselves
Yes,
do the work?
we do. We sell the wine in our shop.
Well, I won't leave without getting some wine.
I think so.
Do you know?
Dear listener, let me assure you, I didn't leave the Abbey without tasting some of the wine. This legacy of nuns producing wine lives on.
Can I ask you first,
Yeah.
what led you to become a sister, and a sister at this abbey in particular?
When I entered here, I did not know anything about Hildegard of Bingen.
Is that right?
Yes, my baptized name is Hildegard, you know?
No.
Yes.
So your name was Hildegard.
Yeah,
You didn't know anything about Hildegard.
No.
But you've ended up at Hildegard's Abbey.
yeah, but
Tell me how.
we are Benedictine nuns here,
Yeah.
and not an order of St. Hildegard.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know. And I was very interested and more than interested in Benedictine life.
Yeah.
The Order of St. Benedict is the oldest monastic order in the Western Church. It was founded in the middle of the 6th century AD by Benedict of Nursia, who deserves an episode of his own. And I'm sure, Producer Kaley, you're marking that down. The life of a Benedictine, whether a monk or a nun, is dedicated to prayer, study, and work, as outlined in the Rule of St. Benedict, an amazing ancient work, and we're going to link to it in the show notes.
I entered the monastery in 1989.
Okay.
Yes, in February.
Wow.
So I'm here for 37 years.
Amazing. Can you tell me about daily life here?
We start at 6 o'clock with the Lord's. That's the first prayer. And
That's
then,
praises, yes?
yes, here in the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Latin.
Yes.
Our prayers are in Latin.
Yes.
And at 8 o'clock we have Holy Mass. And between Lord's and Holy Mass, we have the time of spiritual reading, the Bible, the Rule of St. Benedict, and other literature. And after Holy Mass, we have time for work in the shop or in the garden, the vineyards. And at 12 o'clock, we have a prayer, as it will be later on. After that, we have our meal, and then short time of rest. And then again, time for working, because we have to earn our money for ourselves, by ourselves, which is in the Rule of St. Benedict. And 5:30 we have Vespers, and after that dinner, and then we meet for half an hour or 3/4 of an hour and talk about theology, sports, holidays of a sister or whatever. And at 7:30 in the evening, we have Compline and Vigils. And then it's finished.
Okay.
More than 800 years ago, Hildegard's day would have followed a pretty similar rhythm, except she had to build in time for management and preaching tours. The daily routine ordered by the Rule of St. Benedict envisages a balanced day of about 7 to 8 hours sleep. It's pretty good. 3 to 4 hours of prayer, 2 to 3 hours of sacred reading, so they were real nerds, and about 6 hours of manual labour, though it differed in the different seasons, depending on the harvests, of course. Meals were meant to be adequate for good health. Benedict himself wasn't into punishing the body, as some other monkey people were. The wine allowance was moderate by ancient standards, though pretty generous by ours. He said that monks should have no more than 300 mils a day. That's half a pint, or about 2 standard glasses of wine. Mind you, Benedict added to his rule that those who choose not to drink will receive a special reward. Women who entered the monastic life in the 12th century had more opportunities than most of their sex to study. Universities were only just coming into existence, and so monasteries were still very much the central places of learning.
And during this time of moving a community, all this struggle, all this terrific time for her life, she also wrote her first major theological treatise called Scivias, which is short for Know the Ways of the Lord.
What's the book about?
The book begins with her portrait, and it talks about her visions and how she was told to write this book and how it's a prophetic work. And so at the beginning, it talks about the various kinds of people who are in the church, monks, nuns, who they are, defines them, explains who they are. And the second book is kind of a liturgical commentary. And there's a chapter of it which is dedicated to the Eucharist. There's a chapter for baptism. There's a chapter for the sacraments. And she talks about the ways in which, especially, I think, women's communities relate to the sacraments. And then the third book, it's a 3-book work, is a long pilgrimage through this world that she designs for pilgrims to go through. And there are stations, and each one is inhabited by virtues, particular virtues that you need in your life to proceed along the path of life.
She lived a very intensive relationship with God. And in the first book she wrote, the Libers Civias, Know the Ways, in English, in the beginning she describes a mystic, what do you call it, a mystic meeting with God in her heart. Yeah? And this is what is characteristic for her life since she was a child. It started with 5 years. But with 43, she started to make her visions public, because God told her, not before. She kept it in silence with her in her heart.
I saw all this, and then I refused to write. Not out of stubbornness, but out of a sense of my inability, for fear of the skepticism of others, the shrugging of shoulders, and the manifold gossip of mankind, until God's scourge threw me on the bed of illness. There, finally, overcome by much suffering, I set my hand to write. Hildegard of Bingen, Scivias Declaration.
Scivias, or Know the Way, is Hildegard's best-known work. In it, she recounts 26 visions, and the text was illuminated by an unknown hand, though most scholars think Hildegard had a hand in that hand. The drawings are amazing. The visions are a 3-part account of creation, redemption, and salvation. The visions are apocalyptic, astronomical, cosmological. They can be bewildering to read. Here's a bit of her famous vision of the cosmic egg, a kind of mapping of the universe with the Earth at the center, and then the sun, the moon, the stars revolving around it, and the struggle between good and evil.
After this, I saw a vast instrument, round and shadowed, in the shape of an egg, small at the top, large in the middle, and narrowed at the bottom. Outside it, surrounding its circumference, there was bright fire, with, as it were, a shadowy zone under it. And in that fire there was a globe of sparkling flame, so great that the whole instrument was illuminated by it, over which 3 little torches were arranged in such a way that by their fire they held up the globe, lest it fall.
These days, when we talk about visions, our minds go to Eastern religions or cults of various kinds. Or we might think of the Middle Ages in the sense of the stereotypical Dark Ages, you know, those silly, superstitious medieval folk who just didn't know better. Actually, the great 20th century neurologist Oliver Sacks attempted an explanation for Hildegard's mystical visions, diagnosing her with migraines, which would explain the visual auras she described. Other scholars try to explain the visions of a mystic as a result of fasting and delirium or hysteria or some drug-induced ecstasy. But here's how Hildegard herself described her visions.
I do not see with external eyes, and I do not hear it with my external ears. I do not perceive with thoughts of my heart, nor by any medium of my 5 senses, but rather only in my soul, with open eyes, so that I never experience the unconsciousness of ecstasy, but awake, I see this day and night.
Honestly, I don't know what to make of this kind of stuff. The Sydney Anglican in me instinctively rejects all that mysticism. But I also think there are more things in heaven and earth than my philosophy can contain. Interestingly, people in Hildegard's day were often really skeptical about these kinds of visions. The Pope himself scrutinized her visions. It was eventually concluded that she was some kind of prophetess, and that's what she was typically called. And much of her writings are very biblical. And her pastoral letters are always calling people back to a really simple and sincere Christian faith. She certainly didn't want to promote some kind of esoteric Gnosticism. Sister Lydia was actually pretty emphatic with me about Hildegard's first loves.
The Bible is the first book or the most important book for monks and nuns.
Yes.
And St. Benedict says that the Bible is the original rule of the rule of St. Benedict.
Amen.
So when the St. Benedict wants to express very important things, he uses the words of the Bible and not his own. Yeah. And here in our church you see Jesus Christ is in the middle of our life, and this is also here with the paintings. And this is very important for Hildegard. Yeah.
Tell me how.
Because in our rule of St. Benedict we find the sentences, do not prefer anything to Jesus Christ, or do not put anything higher than Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Okay.
This is the center of our life and also Hildegard's life.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is why she could tell people what is wrong in her century, and why people still understand what she wants to tell us now. It's the same.
As word spread of Hildegard's visions, her popularity grew. News reached the Archbishop of Mainz, who informed Pope Eugene III of a possible visionary, that is, heretic, in the region. Papal envoys were sent to size up Hildegard and determine the authenticity of her visions. The envoy was actually satisfied with what they saw and brought back the half-finished Scivias to show the Pope. Around the same time, Hildegard wrote a letter to Bernard of Clairvaux, one of the most influential churchmen of his day. It was perhaps an attempt to get a higher authority to endorse her visions. She continued to be anxious about how they were going to be received. At the Synod of Trier, an important church meeting convened by the Pope in 1147, Hildegard's visions came under papal review. Bernard of Clairvaux took time out of encouraging the Crusades and other things, and was there in attendance and actually spoke in favour of Hildegard. That was a big deal. Her work was eventually sanctioned as authentic revelations from the Holy Spirit, and the Pope publicly encouraged Hildegard to continue her writing. All of this catapulted Hildegard to almost celebrity status.
But Hildegard, she didn't just speak to her sisters.
No.
She spoke to the world.
Yes.
Now this is unusual.
For a woman in Middle Ages?
Yes.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. My listeners will be fascinated.
She left also the monastery, which is not normal for Benedictine nuns. Nowadays it's more normal, but at that time. And
once you go in, you're meant to stay in, are you?
Yes, this is in the rule of St. Benedict, that you stay in the monastery the whole of your life when you have the final vows. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, but she went travelling.
Yes, to Mainz, Bamberg, Köln, Cologne, and so on.
And we know she spoke in public.
Yes, she does.
And in church.
Yes, she did. And this is because God tells her what to say to the people. And she does it not because she wanted to do it, but because God tells her. And also the letters she wrote to bishops and other monasteries and so on, this is the same. This is the center in her heart. This is the place where the relationship of God is in you. And this is the center from which she acted.
Yeah. And people obviously recognized that in her. I noticed some of the images of her, they say prophetess.
Yeah, let's go up there.
So
there we have it also.
Is that how we think of her? She was like a prophet.
A prophet does not tell people what he wants to tell them, but what God tells him to tell the people.
Yeah.
It's Elia in the Bible. Yeah. He went for God. Yeah. And this is the picture I like most of St. Hildegard.
Yes, and there she is.
Yes.
Prophetissa.
Genau. Ja. St. Hildegard is Prophetissa.
How about that?
In addition to her public preaching, Hildegard challenged people in authority through letters, and nearly 400 letters have survived. There is a ton for Hildegard scholars to study. And these were not just the stuff of pen pals. A letter in this period was an event. It was hugely expensive to produce, for one thing. It was often on parchment or vellum. They're different grades of prepared animal skins. And when you received a letter from Hildegard, you knew to take it seriously. You were probably in trouble. With the help of her monk, scribe and confidant, Volmar, she corresponded with nobility, royalty and church officials who often asked her for spiritual advice. Tell me more about her letters, if you would. What were the sorts of things she was most concerned about?
In the
and
letter?
How were those messages received? Yeah, her letters.
Part of Volmar's work was to help Hildegard with her program of religious reform. She wanted to change the church. She wanted to make it strong. She wanted to give women, religious women, a strong place in it. And her letters were collected by him. And I think that she and he added to them greatly. So that the final copies, some of them may very well have been written by Volmar, may very well have been forgeries of some sort. But what they do tell us is what Hildegard and Volmar's view of religious life was, and how they wished it to be lived, and how they wished their program of religious reform to go out into the world.
What did they want to reform?
They wanted the clergy to be learned, to not take bribes, to be chaste, to live honorable lives. To live honorable lives.
Wow. Imagine that.
And to know what they were doing.
Uh-huh.
You know, when you do a sacrament, do you understand what you're doing? Well, she wanted to be sure that they did. So her reforming mentality is something that's quite typical for the 12th century in the wake of what's called the Gregorian Reform. So I think it's very important to see her as a religious reformer with an agenda in her writings, in her letters, in her compositions, in everything that she does, and not to forget that she lives with this clash between good and evil. And she thinks that learning to praise God with the right heart, full voice, is a crucial part of every Christian's life.
Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine was one of the most powerful women in 12th century Europe. She was the Queen of France and the Queen of England. Well, she wrote to Hildegard for some help. We don't actually have her letter, but we do have Hildegard's response, where she warns of a restlessness that is clouding the Queen's judgment.
Your mind is like a wall which is covered with clouds, and God will help you in all your tribulations.
To Eleanor's husband, King Henry II of England, Hildegard sent warnings after Henry fell out with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket. Hildegard warns against deviating from justice.
When a certain man holds a high office over other men, the Lord commands him, "Yours are the gifts of giving. It is by ruling and defending, protecting and providing that you may reach heaven." But then a bird, black as pitch, will come to you from the north, and it will say, "You can do whatever you want. So do this and do that. Make this excuse and that excuse. For it does not profit you to have regard to justice. For if you always consult justice, you are not the master, rather you are reduced to mere slavery. It is imperative that you not listen to the thief who so counsels you. Dear Son of God, you must flee this environment and call on your Father with all your might, as he gladly reaches out his hand to help you.
Then, in 1153, Hildegard wrote to King Frederick Barbarossa.
O King, it is imperative for you to have foresight in all your affairs. For in a mystic vision, I see you like a little boy or some madman living before living eyes.
Frederick also began promoting rival popes, and Hildegard again wrote to him, warning in what she believed to be the voice of God that, quote, "My sword will pierce you," if he continued to interfere in the affairs of the church. This woman is gutsy. And she even accused Pope Anastasius IV, who was in his 80s when he was elected, of being too old to deal with corruption and allowing arrogance and injustice to thrive in the church.
You, O man, who are too tired to rein in the pomposity of arrogance among those placed in your bosom, why do you not call back the shipwrecked who cannot rise from the depths without help? Why do you put up with depraved people who are blinded by foolishness and who delight in harmful things? Like a hen which cackles in the night and terrifies herself. Such people are completely useless.
Here is a medieval woman consulting with men in high office, unafraid to scold them, admonish them, and call them back to a more simple version of Christianity. So we've tackled Hildegard as visionary, Hildegard as prophetess. After the break, we meet Hildegard, the wellness influencer, and Hildegard, the composer. Selah is a Hebrew word often associated with an intentional pause. And that's how Selah, the travel company, run their tours. They're for people who want to go deeper and learn about the incredible history of Christianity around the world. Walk in the footsteps of amazing medieval figures like the Venerable Bede across the landscapes of Scotland and Northern England. Man, I'd like to do that one. Or along the way with the Apostle Paul through Turkey, Greece, Malta and Rome. I want to do that one as well. Or if you haven't had enough of me, I'll be taking a group of my besties around the Holy Land, the state of Israel and Palestine later this year for 2 weeks, visiting the key sites of Jesus' life as we explore the origins of Christianity. But getting quick, these tours have limited numbers, so we can all get to know each other better. Hope to see you. Book your tour now at selah.au. That's SELAH.au. See you there.
Eating excessively fatty meats or blood-rich foods leads to infirmity, as their slippery moisture prevents proper digestion. But one whose face has hard and rough skin, made harsh from the wind, should cook barley in water and, having strained that water through a cloth, should bathe his face gently with the moderately warm water. The skin will become soft and smooth and will have a beautiful colour. If a person's head has an ailment, it should be washed frequently in this water, and it will be healed. Spelt is the very best grain. It provided for good flesh and good blood, as well as a cheerful disposition. Those who cough should take fennel and dill in equal parts. Add 1/3 of a part of horehound and boil the herbs in wine. Strain through a linen cloth, drink, and the cough will disappear. When deeply sad, eat sufficiently of suitable foods to be refreshed, as sadness weighs heavily.
It's tempting to draw a line from Hildegard's natural remedies for medieval ailments to Gwyneth Paltrow's modern lifestyle website, Goop, which director Mark is constantly on. Gwyneth Paltrow recommends a coffee enema as part of a detox program, and Hildegard recommended cookies of joy to combat melancholy. I give you Hildegard the wellness influencer. Now, it might seem strange that Hildegard the mystic was so interested in herbs and minerals and the natural world. But in her excellent biography of Hildegard, Fiona Maddox asks, quote, "Should we be surprised that the one who showed such determination to communicate the secrets of the heavens should also want to reveal the workings of the earth?" Some in the modern New Age movement have adopted Hildegard as a kind of saint. But Hildegard was not a Gnostic. She believed creation reflected God's love, that the earth was good. Indeed, she challenged those in her day who taught that the spiritual was good and the earthly was bad. Her biblical theology, from creation to new creation, was better than that of many Bible readers today. Anyway, the point is, just like the early empirical scientists 4 centuries later, Kepler, Galileo, Newton, and the gang, Hildegard believed that cataloguing and studying the natural world was an act of worship. Can you tell me more about her writings on plants and animals, and especially her theory of viriditas, which some people tie into the modern wellness trend? But what's that side of her about? I mean, you can understand someone like her writing about visions and theology, but she was also interested in this earth.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that in many cases, monasteries were sort of infirmaries for local people to come and you know, they had herb gardens and they were practiced in a kind of folk medicine. So one of her treatises is a medical treatise, and it talks about how plants are used to treat various ills. And so it's a wonderful example of the kind of local lore that you might have. Make a poultice of mustard and plap it on your neck, or, you know, whatever you need for a particular kind of healing. And then she has a much more elaborate scientific treatise, which is cosmological in its nature, and is more theological rather than the kind of plants that you're talking about.
Let's press pause. I've got a 5-minute Jesus for you. More than once, I've heard it argued that the world's 3 great monotheistic faiths, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, invented their hope for a paradise beyond as a way of coping with the misery of their desert origins. The French atheist Michel Onfray loves this argument. Who wouldn't fantasize about heavenly bliss if all you had before you was the dreary wilderness of Sinai, the endless sands of Arabia, and the wasteland of Galilee, they say? Now, I'll leave it to Jews and Muslims to defend their own origins. But in the case of Christianity, this line of reasoning is a laughable ecological blunder. Jesus was raised in one of the most beautiful places I've ever visited. You might have your own mental images of Jesus' stomping ground, perhaps based on biblical tales of desert wanderings or the barren hills of Monty Python's Life of Brian. I'm meant to be an expert in all this stuff, and I was frankly amazed at what I saw when I first visited Galilee. Far from being a desert, Galilee is a highly fertile region made up of rolling hills, stark mountains, a large valley leading down to a beautiful lake, Gennesaret, or as we think of it as Lake Galilee, about 12 kilometres wide and 20 kilometres long. The lake has always provided plenty of fish for food and for trade. I, like many others, have enjoyed a fish feast by the shore myself, and actually I'm not a fan. Director Mark, I think you were there when I had my first meal of the so-called St. Peter's fish. Did you like the fish? I hate it.
Yeah, so full of bones.
Bones.
Why would you eat it?
Everywhere. Give me a barramundi every day of the week. Anyway, my point is that Galilee was by far the richest and most populous area in the region. The first century Jewish writer Josephus was the military commander in charge of Galilee, and he wrote this.
For the land is everywhere so rich in soil and pasturage, and produces such a variety of trees, that even the most indolent are tempted by these facilities to devote themselves to agriculture. In fact, every inch of the soil has been cultivated by the inhabitants. There is not a parcel of wasteland. The towns, too, are thickly distributed, and even the villages, thanks to the fertility of the soil, are all so densely populated that the smallest of them contains above 15,000 inhabitants. Josephus, Jewish War 3, 42-43.
Scholars rightly question Josephus's numbers there. Nazareth, for instance, where Jesus was raised, was a hamlet of probably fewer than 1,000 people. But Josephus's ecology is better than his demography, and modern geological studies have confirmed his basic statements about soil fertility. It's something to do with volcanic rock. Aerial photography of the mountainous upper Galilee, north of the lake, indicates widespread terracing where intense vine and olive cultivation took place. Down in Jesus' lower Galilee, a similar natural abundance is clear, and excavations of Nazareth reveal the presence of grape presses for wine and a field irrigation system that belies the romantic notion that Jesus grew up in a place of barrenness and poverty. A leading expert of Galilee was Professor Sean Frayne of Trinity College, Dublin, now passed away, but he wrote about this.
The Nazareth Farm Project supports the idea that they were not just mere subsistence farmers, but like all colonizers in the Mediterranean, as elsewhere, worked the land intensively, participated in the redistributive system, and were able to support a relatively comfortable lifestyle.
I had the great privilege years ago of being shown around parts of Galilee by Professor Frayne. Actually, Mark, you were there? Yes? You were there?
I was there.
Oh, you organised it. What am I talking about?
I'm everywhere with you, John.
Yeah,
I never leave.
Yeah. Yes. As we looked over the first century town of Gumla with the eastern shore of the lake in the distance, I was struck by the rich green of the grass, the bright yellow of the flowers, and the abundant bird life all around. We could have been in Kangaroo Valley, New South Wales. Beautiful spot. Hildegard would have described what I saw as viriditas, the greenness of God's healthy creation. It's the opposite of ariditas, the aridness, barrenness of ill health. Like Hildegard, Jesus grew up with a clear sense of the provisions of the Creator in a place of beauty and fertility. It's no wonder that the land and its produce feature so often in Jesus' teachings.
By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Matthew 7:16. Others, like seed grown on good soil, hear the word, accept it, and produce a crop, some 30, some 60, some 100 times what was sown. Mark 4, verse 20. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Luke 12, verses 16 to 17. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. Matthew 13, verse 24.
The thesis that Christianity's hope for the kingdom of heaven was fueled by its desert origins, longing to get out of this world, is as false as it is facile. The first followers of Jesus all of them Galileans, like their leader, lived in a place brimming with the produce of the earth. And more than that, they lived with a worldview that was the opposite of the Gnostic viewpoint, the opposite of Platonic reasoning, actually. They didn't think we needed to escape the physical world to find spiritual and intellectual nourishment. They believed this world was, in fact, the arena of God's actions, that our bodies are the instruments of blessing, and that the earth and our bodies, despite their frailties and ailments, would one day be restored by the good Creator in the kingdom of God. You can press play now.
God is the creator of the earth, and he gives us the plants, the herbs, also the animals, everything here as a gift, so that human beings can live. And there is also this word of the viriditas, the power of the green. I would translate it in English, and this also always is in connection with God, and not just only green and herbs.
Yeah. It's not magic.
No. And these herbs are given us also for healing. And in the times of Hildegard, 12th century, we do not have the hospitals and all these things as we have nowadays. So the people around the monasteries come to sisters and monks who are with the ill sisters and monks, because they know how to use the herbs.
Did they really work? It wasn't just hocus pocus? Like
no.
these.
They knew it because they tested it also.
Yeah, right.
And they knew from further generations what to use when. Yeah. And this is what she wrote down in her works on plants and herbs. And this is still a knowledge which is okay, but 900 years later you should sometimes ask a doctor so. Yeah, because there are more possibilities nowadays.
Of course.
Yeah. And also important is that the monastery of Rupertsberg was near a road which was a European road of people who wanted to sell their things also in other parts of Europe. And so she met many people and asked for their knowledge, and so that's why she knew as much as she wrote down in her works.
That's one of the incandescent melodies of Hildegard, called O Viridissima Virga, O Greenest Branch. It's a hymn dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Here's how some of the words read in English.
O branch of freshest green, O hail! Within the windy gusts of saints, upon a quest you swayed and sprouted forth. When it was time, you blossomed in your boughs. Hail, hail. You heard, for in you seeped the sunlight's warmth like balsam sweet perfume. For in you bloomed so beautiful a flower, whose fragrance awakened all the spices from their dried out stupor, and they all appeared in full viridity.
There's that word again, viriditas, greenness, aliveness. In any case, in a world that loved music, Hildegard was a master. Where would you hear music in medieval Europe? I mean, did they sing at the pub, at the dinner table, at the theatre? I mean, obviously in church, but where would I hear music if I was transported back into 1140?
You're going to go to 1140. Well, we don't have very much vernacular music written down, because it's a written practice. So most of the music that we do have, not all, because this is the period of the troubadours and the troubadours in southern France, and so we're starting to have a big repertory for the first time of music with vernacular text, love poetry. So it's the period when that happens. You have who must have been a very great composer and would have been a peer of Hildegard compositionally, is Peter Abelard.
Oh.
And he he has this extraordinary body of hymns that he wrote for Eloise's monastery, the Paraclete. But you realize that in Christian Europe in the Latin Middle Ages, the churches, there were many of them in every town, and they all had a community of monks or friars who would make music all day long, who would sing the hours of prayer. You know, the average medieval religious, male or female, sang, 5 or 6 hours a day.
Wow.
And on a major feast, 8 or 9.
Woo.
So, I mean, the whole purpose was to praise God. So, that's why a church exists. So, of course, it's filled with music.
Yep.
And it's filled with the singing of the Psalms.
Margot and I got a little bit carried away when we started to talk about Hildegard's music. I'm still a wannabe musician at heart. There's some extra chat about how we read musical notation in the 12th century, and a super fun tidbit about instruments and a particularly famous noisy organ from this period. I had no idea it went back that far. But that's just for Plus subscribers. Please send your complaints to producer Kaley.
Okay, so let's talk about what it's like. First of all, most of her music is written for the office. Those are the hours of prayer. And the hours of prayer are places where the women have pretty much control of everything. It's their hours of prayer, so they get to sing. And then for the Mass, she has very few pieces, but she has sequences. Those long chants that are sung before the gospel. And once again, that's where the community sings. So it's important to realize that she was composing music that she knew the women of her community could sing legally in the liturgy. And she composes in the traditional genres of chant. She writes antiphons, responsories, sequences, hymns, etc. But she does two things that are distinctive. She uses a genre, but then she blows it up. I say, she takes a genre, sticks dynamite in it, and lights it. Lets it blow. So the genre is there. You can see that it's working, but she increases the ambitus, the range of pitches. She may increase the numbers of melismatic passages. Melismatic being one sound for many notes.
Yeah.
Look, say Hallelujah. Okay, that's a melisma.
Yeah,
that's a long one. And she writes a lot of long ones. And the other thing is that her music, because she composes both text and music, her music and her texts go together like hand and glove. Beautifully arranged with each other. And she focuses on her music is actually, once you understand the formulae in which she writes, it's quite simple. But it doesn't sound that way when you first listen to it. But every piece is kind of a sonic world unto itself. And you have to study the text, you have to study the music, you have to study the relationship between text and music, and you have to see how she's using music to comment on text and using text to comment on the music. It's part of a whole, and you have to study it and sing it multiple times till you get it. She's not easy, Hildegard, She's not easy to read. She's not easy to understand. And think about it. If you're writing for a monastic community, you can't be easy to understand. I mean, Chrysogonus Waddell, the great Cistercian historian and monk, used to say, you can't sing junk if you're in a monastic community, because it will kill you. It will make you sick.
Yeah, if you're singing 6 hours a day,
you can't just sing.
You can't be singing "Love, Love Me Do."
You can't. You can't. It's got to have a degree of complexity to sustain your interest and your theological understanding and your musical understanding. Or as Chrysogonus said, it will make you sick. You know. So her music is never an easy go, and it's not supposed to be. And it repays. I learn every time, you know, and I've been studying her for years, but she always has more to teach me. And that's the great thing, you know. I mean, it's a great thing.
Producer Kaley is going to create a kind of beginner's listening guide to Hildegard of Bingen on Spotify with the help of Sister Lydia and Margot Fassler. We're going to link to it in the show notes. Just look out for Hildegard of Undeceptions. Honestly, I'm amazed by this woman. Going to Bingen, seeing her shrine, touring the abbey, drinking wine from her vineyard. It was the happiest day of the year for me, apart from every day I spend with my darling Buff, of course. But 4 things strike me about Hildegard. First, she is a one-person demolition of the frequent claim that medieval Europe was medieval, a word we often now use to mean backward, the Dark Ages and all that jazz. Here was a true polymath with a passion for nature, medicine, astronomy, music, winemaking, ethics, and of course, theology. She was undoubtedly exceptional, but her long and successful life is compelling evidence that there's a surrounding culture that valued all of these things. Secondly, I love that this is a woman doing all of this stuff. And that too challenges our impression of the Middle Ages. Hildegard reminds us that there were plenty of educated women who lived flourishing lives. And the fact that she was invited to preach in the major centres of the Rhineland in church is a welcome challenge to some conservative churches today. Even the medieval church could recognise a gifted woman and give her opportunities to bless thousands. Yes, it wasn't the normal church order. They acknowledged that. But there are exceptions in Scripture, so they made exceptions in reality. More of that, please. Thirdly, I personally love Hildegard's reminder that the earth is good. Yes, she was a visionary, a theologian, an intellectual, a nerd, but she also delighted in more than 1,000 plants and animals that she had studied. She believed that bodily health mattered. She insisted that God's good earth was the playground of his children, the arena of the battle between good and evil, and the ultimate focus of Christian hope. Finally, I'm impressed with Hildegard's call to Christian simplicity. Despite her association with mysticism, Hildegard wanted to see the reform of Christian Europe expressed as practical love. As Sister Lydia told me as we walked around the Abbey Church, Hildegard put the Bible at the centre and Jesus Christ above everything. That's a good word to believers and doubters alike. Don't get distracted by the complexities and the disputes among Christians. Read Scripture. Focus on Christ. That's the true Veritas.
I have a question especially for people who listen to this interview who aren't believers, like you're a believer, I am a believer.
Yes.
But what do you think is the significance of someone like Hildegard for someone who doesn't believe today? What lesson can we learn from her, or what does she tell us about the spiritual life, even for people who don't yet believe?
I think the important thing is that she shows with her life, or through her life, and how she goes about with people and her sisters, that belief is not something which puts you in a cage, but belief brings a great deal of liberty, because God left very much liberty for us to decide for God or not. And also in obedience, in one of the vows of Benedictine life, there is so much liberty to use it, because it means listening to God. And I think this is the important point. And you have to decide if you want it or not. Yeah. And if you do not want it, then it's your decision and you can go about life. But nevertheless, I met people who said they did not believe, but they were very, very careful with people and so on. It's also very interesting. Yeah?
Yes, because the one perception of Christianity by skeptical people is that it's very narrow.
Yeah.
It crushes your life.
But it does not.
Hildegard, her life is so expansive, intellectually, emotionally, musically, philosophically, theologically.
We have to go back to that again.
Yeah.
Because this was in the last, I think, 100 years, 200 years, this was created by Church itself.
Yeah.
And this is, it's a sad thing, I think. Yeah.
Do you find yourself praying for the world that it would come back to its senses?
Yeah, because we have that in Benedictine life. We need not search it in Buddhism or something like that. We have it.
Yes.
Yeah, we have it. And we have to put that free again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sister Lydia, you are an inspiration.
Hey, the spectacular music of Hildegard that you heard during this episode is from Voices of Ascension, a New York City choral ensemble who produced an album called Hildegard von Bingen, Voices of Angels, back in 1997. Thanks to the team there for granting us permission to use those parts of the tracks. You can find links to the album in the show notes for this episode at undeceptions.com. Undeceptions is hosted by me, John Dickson, produced by Kaley Payne, and directed and edited by Mark Hadley. Sophie Hawkshaw is our social media and membership coordinator, Alasdair Belling, writer, researcher, Siobhan McGuinness, our online librarian, Lindy Leviston remains my wonderful assistant, Santino DeMarco is chief finance and operations consultant, Peter Kozushko is our North American representative. Our voice actors today were Dakota Love and Yannick Laurie. Undeceptions is the flagship podcast of undeceptions.com, letting the truth out. An Undeceptions podcast.
Have you had a coffee enema, Mark?
Not a coffee enema. Because I prefer tea.
He only drinks tea, this guy.
Right at the end. Just that. After the credits. That's all you need.
But you do have to tell me, I mean, to change
We have
to
10
another
minutes.
holy subject.
We
You need
have
to recommend the wine.
10 minutes to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the most important, no, not the most important thing, the second most important thing
Second.
is the wine. You need to show me which wine I must buy.
Then we have to go to the shop.
Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay. And there you see the wide range of our wines.
Yes, I had a look, I just didn't know which one to buy.
And there are special wines, late harvest, which have a special picture on it.
Okay. I just want the best tasting one.
It depends if you mean dry, medium, or mild. So we call this...
I like a reasonably big Riesling.
Okay, let me see. We have many big Rieslings. This is the so-called monastery edition because this is all late harvest, dry, medium, and mild.
Yeah.
And we have here the illumination of the angels, the choir of the angels. And I think you know the illuminations were made after her death, according to their vision, to the visions.
Yep.
And the others are
I'm more
so-called
interested
normal
in the
wines.
flavour, Sister Lydia, than the pretty picture. So which flavour?
That's a good thing.
Which flavour am I going to like?
Yeah. Then I would take this, not this one here.
This one
The
here?
Benedictus. You want to taste it?
Oh, yeah.
That's what.
This is possible?
The best thing. Yes, it is.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please come to the other side. So that you know
Wine
if
tasting
you like it.
at Hildegard's.
Yeah. This is my work in the afternoon.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Also in English. So.
Thank you. So is that the one I should get?
Yes.
Okay.
Shall
great.
I fetch a bottle for you?
Yes, you should. Thank you very much.
And when you want to open it, put this away, and then you find the glass cork.
Huh.
And you get it like this.
Okay.
And this is also, again, to close it.
Okay. I promise not to drink it all tonight.
This is your decision.
Well, that would be more than the rule would allow.
But you are not under the rules. So.
Well played.
Yeah? Okay, danke.